Old-school cabovers already stood out because of their imposing shape, but some were transformed into true homes on wheels, with massive, rare sleeper cabs packed with surprising features. What was it like to spend days inside a truck with a bed, cabinets, a kitchen, and enough room to truly relax between long hauls? On this journey, we are going to explore 6 machines that took comfort on the road to an entirely different level. Stay with us until the end, because the final Kenworth on this list looks more like a highway residence than an ordinary truck. Kenworth Firebird. The Kenworth Firebird was built on the foundation of the legendary Kenworth K100, one of the most recognizable cabovers ever seen on American highways. Built by Kenworth in the United States, the K100 became an icon of heavy-duty trucking during the 1970s and 1980s, when cabover designs still dominated many long-distance routes. But the Firebird was far from an ordinary K100. Its enormous extended sleeper completely changed the proportions of the truck, creating a tall, long, and unmistakable profile. From the side, it looked like a traditional highway tractor, blended with a small house mounted directly onto the chassis. Under the cab, this type of Kenworth could be equipped with a Cummins or Detroit diesel inline 6-cylinder engine. Depending on the year and setup, output often exceeded 300 horsepower. Backed by plenty of low-end torque for pulling heavy trailers across thousands of miles. The transmission was usually manual, with multiple gears and tall highway ratios. The driver had to know the sound of the engine, feel the truck losing momentum on a grade, and choose the right moment for every shift, especially in a heavy rig carrying the added weight of an oversized sleeper. The most common configuration used a 6x4 drivetrain, with 2 powered rear axles putting the torque to the pavement. A reinforced front suspension supported the cabover engine layout, while the rear could use either leaf springs or air suspension, depending on the owner's preferred setup. In practical terms, a sleeper this large allowed the driver to spend more time away from motels, restaurants, and truck stops. There was room to store food, personal belongings, and everything needed for long runs without feeling trapped inside a narrow box. And if this Kenworth already looked like a house on wheels, the next cabover shows how interior space evolved in a much more modern direction. Freightliner Argosy. When the Freightliner Argosy arrived in the late 1990s, it brought a fresh approach to the American cabover. Built by Freightliner in the United States, it combined the classic cabover engine layout with modern styling, improved aerodynamics, and an interior designed around long-distance comfort. Unlike older cabovers that required a real climb to reach the driver's seat, the Argosy used a retractable step system that made getting in and out much easier. It seemed like a small detail, but it made a major difference for drivers climbing into the truck several times a day while carrying bags, tools, or personal gear. The transmission could be a traditional multi-speed manual, or, in later versions, an automated manual. On long runs, the automated setup reduced fatigue, made it easier to hold a steady pace, and allowed the driver to focus more attention on traffic and road conditions. Inside, the sleeper could include a refrigerator, television, clothing storage, and a compact dining area. In the most elaborate conversions, the space felt like the interior of a small RV, even though it remained attached to a working truck capable of hauling heavy loads across an entire continent. Visually, the Argosy had a commanding presence, with its huge windshield, tall cab, and nearly vertical front end. The deep sound of the engine beneath the floor preserved the character of an old-school cabover, while better insulation and modern seating made the ride far less exhausting. The model also became important in countries such as Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, where cabovers remained highly valued. In those regions, Argosys often worked remote long-haul routes, where a spacious sleeper was more than a luxury. It was a necessity, but the next machine pushed highway luxury even further, with a sleeper that looked as though it had been designed for someone who practically lived on the road. International Pro Sleeper Eagle. The International Pro Sleeper Eagle was one of those creations designed to turn the highway into a home. Built around heavy-duty international trucks in the United States, it combined the brand's classic presence with a sleeper compartment far larger than anything found in a typical factory configuration. The first thing that caught your eye was the length. The sleeper stretched far behind the main cab, creating an almost continuous body that stood much taller than a conventional tractor. It was the kind of truck that made people slow down at a truck stop just to study the details. Under the cab, trucks of this size were commonly powered by diesel inline six-cylinder engines from manufacturers such as Cummins, Caterpillar, and Detroit Diesel. Depending on the engine, output could exceed 400 horsepower, with enough torque to move the enlarged cab and a heavily loaded trailer over long distances. The transmission was usually manual, with multiple gears and ratios suited to long-haul highway work. Some custom builds also used automated systems that reduced shifting effort and made the truck easier to handle on extended routes or through mountainous terrain. The most common drivetrain was a 6x4 layout, with two powered rear axles helping distribute the load and deliver traction. The front suspension had to support the heavy cab, while the rear often used air suspension to reduce vibration and movement inside the sleeper. For drivers who remembered the cramped bunks of older trucks, this amount of space was almost hard to believe. Clothes, supplies, and personal items could be stored without turning the interior into a cluttered mess. The driver could stand up, take a few steps, and rest in real comfort. If this tour through the biggest sleeper cabs is bringing back some great trucking memories, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. That way you will not miss more rare machines from the golden age of the highway, and you will help this content reach more classic truck enthusiasts. The International Pro Sleeper Eagle already looked like an apartment mounted on axles, but the next truck came from a brand known for hand-built quality and took the giant sleeper concept to an even rarer level. Marmon Mega Sleeper. Few names carry as much exclusivity on American highways as Marmon. Built in low numbers with an almost handcrafted approach, Marmon trucks became known for their refined finish, heavy-duty construction, and unmistakable presence. Today, any well-preserved example is enough to draw a crowd. The so-called Marmon Mega Sleeper pushed that exclusivity even further. Its enormous custom sleeper stretched across a large portion of the chassis, creating a structure that looked like a small motorhome attached to a highway tractor. The tall cab and exaggerated length made it clear that this truck had been designed for months on the road. This was not a machine built to sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour like a car. Its purpose was to move tens of thousands of pounds safely, maintain steady pulling power on grades, and cruise efficiently on the open highway. Depending on the rear axle ratio, it could operate near the legal speed limits for heavy trucks. The transmission was typically a 10, 13, or even 18-speed manual, with low gears for getting a loaded combination moving and tall gears for keeping engine speed down on the highway. Shifting smoothly required timing, experience, and a strong familiarity with the sound of the diesel engine. Inside, the experience was completely different from the narrow sleepers found in ordinary trucks. There was enough headroom to stand, room to move between the furniture, and enough space to maintain something close to a normal daily routine. After hours of driving, the owner could eat, watch television, and sleep without ever leaving the truck. On the outside, Marmon's hand-built character gave the machine even more presence. Custom paint, broad metal surfaces, and polished chrome reflected the lights of truck stops, while the engine produced the deep, steady rhythm associated with the great highway tractors of that era. This was not just transportation, it was a statement of independence and status. Marmon ended its limited truck production in 1997, making surviving examples even more desirable among collectors. Finding one with a sleeper of this size is especially rare. Even so, it still appears modest beside the next Kenworth, a truck designed to deliver first-class comfort on the highway. Kenworth K100 Aerodyne First Class. The name First Class perfectly matched the purpose of this Kenworth K100 Aerodyne. Built around one of Kenworth's most iconic cab designs in the United States, It preserved the squared-off shape of a classic cabover, while adding an extended sleeper that made the truck look longer, more luxurious, and far more sophisticated. The K100 Aerodyne became famous in the 1970s for its raised roof and upper windows, which allowed more light and air into the sleeper. On the first-class version, that concept went even further, with a custom extension behind the cab, creating a rest area built for long periods away from home. Engine choices varied according to the year and the owner's preferences, which was common among American heavy-duty trucks of that era. Popular options included Cummins, Caterpillar, and Detroit diesel inline six-cylinder engines, with output that could exceed 400 horsepower. The drivetrain usually followed a 6x4 layout, with two powered rear axles and a suspension system designed to support the heavy combination. At the rear, air suspension improved comfort and reduced some of the vibration reaching the sleeper, which was especially important in a cab this large. Inside the first class, the living area could include a large bed, cabinets, a refrigerator, a countertop, a television, and a dedicated place for meals. Instead of simply lying down behind the driver's seat, the owner had a compact living space for storing clothes, preparing food, and relaxing for hours at a time. The first class showed how the classic Aerodyne could become even more comfortable without losing its identity. But the final truck on this list took the same Kenworth platform to even more extraordinary proportions, with a sleeper so large that its name became associated with excess on wheels. Kenworth K100 Aerodyne Double Eagle. Reaching the double eagle means stepping into one of the most extreme creations in the world of custom cabovers. Built on the Kenworth K100 Aerodyne platform in the United States, it combined the classic cabover engine appearance with a stretch sleeper, far larger than anything normally offered by the factory. Strong, low-end torque was essential for moving the weight of the extended cab, the chassis, and a fully loaded trailer. Acceleration from 0 to 60 miles per hour varied greatly depending on the load and rear axle ratio, while top speed was usually determined by operating conditions and highway regulations. The most common transmission was a 13 or 18-speed manual, with low ratios for getting heavy loads moving and tall gears for highway cruising. The driver had to listen to the engine, control the revs, and time every shift with precision, especially on grades or when the truck was carrying tens of thousands of pounds. The Double Eagle earned its reputation inside the sleeper. Depending on the customization, it could include a double bed, cabinets, a refrigerator, a sink, a dining table, a television, and separate storage areas for clothes, food, and equipment needed during weeks on the road. The interior height allowed the driver to stand through much of the cabin, which was a major departure from older sleepers where drivers almost had to crawl into bed. With the curtains closed, the lights on, and personal belongings neatly stored, the space became a genuine temporary home on wheels. Today, finding a preserved Double Eagle is extremely difficult, mainly because many of these sleepers were built or modified to individual order. It closes this list as a symbol of an era when size, personality, and comfort could transform a working truck into one of the most extraordinary highway homes ever created. Today, we explored 6 cabovers that turn the highway into a home, with enormous sleepers, powerful engines, and creative features that still impress people decades later. More than trucks, these machines represent an era when comfort, personality, and toughness traveled together across thousands of miles. Now tell us in the comments, which sleeper cab surprised you the most? Which one would you want to take on a long road trip? And which model deserves to return in a modern version? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. This tells YouTube that the content is worth recommending, helps the channel grow, and allows more fans of classic trucks to discover our videos. We will see you in the next video.